Hi, page turners. I feel like just yesterday we were looking at the long list, and now I'm eagerly waiting to see which books will make the International Booker shortlist. So, a quick reminder of the books we've got to choose from. Now, despite having read less than half the list, I will put on my literary psychic hat askew as always and predict the 2025 shortlist. I've chosen 6 titles that I think the judges might go for, varied in tone, style, geography, and theme. So let's dive in, and fingers crossed these picks are better than a week old avocado toast. Let's just hope that I get one or two. Solenoid. I think this is the literary heavy hitter that everyone is favoring. It won the Dublin Literary Prize, surreal magnum opus of the list. I'm enjoying listening to it and can understand the appeal for all the fans and critics, so I've put it on my list. It begins with a school teacher's diary in the 70s in Bucharest, and then whoosh, we spiral into alternate realities and existential wonder. Now, critics have been frothing at the mouth about this. Like I say, it snagged the Dublin Literary Award in 2024, and while the hype is real, the book itself is intimidating in size. It is the only mammoth on the long list. It's not impossible that the judges will choose not to shortlist this favorite, but the jury will have a hard time ignoring a book that's already considered a masterpiece of European fiction. So, in short, Solenoid feels like a shoe in for the shortlist. It's bold, brainy, and I hope it will be unforgettable because I'm investing a lot of time to get to the final page or word narrated. Hunchback. This is the opposite end of the spectrum. It is a mere 96 pages, and it is this pure, unfiltered punch of a book. Don't let the slim size fool you. It is definitely that Japanese debut novel that can surprise you. It won the Akutagawa Prize. Japan's top literary award for its audacious storytelling. It's about a disabled woman confronting her sexual desires and society's ableism with a voice that's darkly wry and fiercely honest. And yeah, talk about pushing boundaries. Some readers have been clutching their pearls at the graphic moments. By that, I mean I would have clutched mine if I had any. Then again, others would probably be cheering, and yet again, thanks to the dichotomy that can be a person, that is me too, shocked yet impressed. I'd recommend it for a book club that loves books which spark debate about current times and appreciate books that make them uncomfortable yet teach something really new because of the candor. Its candid take on disability and desire is bold, insightful, and makes you think about how we view bodies. Obviously, some people are going to find it crass. But given the International Booker jury's recent love for fearless, taboo, smashing works, I suspect Hunchback will muscle its way into the shortlist. It's got that irreverent spark and emotional heft that screams shortlist contender for 2025. Then we have The Book of Disappearance, and I'm picking this even though I've not read it. This novel has one of the most haunting premises imaginable. One day, all the Palestinians vanish into thin air. Poof, gone. What remains are questions, grief, and an Israeli friend searching desperately for clues. I have yet to read it, as I said, but I can't not see this listed. I mean, talk about a powerful political allegory that is so timely. And we've got a Palestinian author, an Iraqi translator. The speculative twist explores identity, memory, and the legacy of displacement. I think the literary merit here is really going to be linked in with the rich, potent times. I don't know, not times, but the rich, potent accuracy of what is happening politically. So, political insight and human emotion is what I am trying to say. It sounds devastating but beautiful, and I think it would continue the legacy of the prize for having this tradition of amplifying global voices. So the judges in recent years have shown a soft spot for stories that illuminate political struggles through inventive narratives. And though the judges this year gave us many surprises with their long list, I think they too will be keen to shine a light on a book like this that sounds like it's thought-provoking and heart-wrenching. Yeah. Then we have another one that I've not read, but I feel is a shoo-in. A Monster Behind the Door. This sounds wildly original. A book from La Réunion, a picaresque coming of age tale packed with post colonial bite. And tell me you're impressed by my vocabulary because I stuck the word picaresque, can't even say it, picaresque in my notebook just last week, wondering when I might use it. Well, it means relating to an episodic style of fiction dealing with the adventures of a rough and dishonest but appealing hero, which potentially, well, it sounds like it describes this. And I like that all of that is the meaning of one word. So the book is set in the 1980s on Reunion, where a young girl endures her sadistic parents and a community rife with unemployment, superstition, and dashed hopes. It sounds grim, but apparently is delivered with offbeat humor and a vivid energy. So that one minute you might be laughing about something dysfunctional that's happened, the next you'll be cringing at the very real horrors that lurk under the surface. And I find that fascinating. So the judges also have already sung its praises on the Booker website, describing it as verve, humor, and pain throbbing in its prose, evidence of how well the translation brings the Creole infused French setting to life. And this satire of the notion of freedom in a French overseas territory is one that I'm really looking forward to diving into. I haven't seen many booktube video reviews pop up for this one, so despite it being long listed, it still sounds like an under the radar gem in a way. But I did listen to the review by Bob the Booker just a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about the second half of the book really taking off, especially in regard to that idea of freedom as the core idea. So I am looking forward to reading this, and I think that it is likely to be shortlisted. Unlike the other books, we have a young narrator telling an unconventional story set in a location we don't often see mentioned every day unless we lived on the island, and in a tone that's darkly comic. Then we have Reservoir Bitches, a collection of 13 linked short stories that are fierce, unflinching, and downright explosive. I told you, the first story nearly put me off. I was like, this is pretty sensationalist and gross. But by the end, the different stories had looped back to one another, and the ending, though still as gruesome and grotesque as the first, maybe even more so, explained why we had this tone throughout. I wouldn't have thought this year I'd be suggesting a book about narcos in Mexico for being shortlisted, but that's because that's just a surface story. This is actually a story about women, about the precarious nature of life where taking a bus without a gaggle of your friends to surround you uh, could see you harmed and killed as though you were prey in some urban jungle. That is the scenes that we get. Instead of a fellow person being on this earth, you are seen as vulnerable without certain protections. And I think the writer has given us women now who lie, cheat, kill, and scheme, not out of evil, but as a response to the violent, machista world that they live in. There's even elements of magical realism for the women who didn't warp themselves into this violence in real life, instead, having to come back in the afterlife for their violent revenge. So, as you can imagine, the stories tackle visceral revenge. It's Tarantino esque in its attitude and has a sharp feminist twist. Now, this book, I think, has already caused a stir online. Some readers are shook by the graphic violence and sexual frankness. So, yeah, You can tell it's not a gentle read. Others will be applauding the refreshing, unapologetic voice. It's a searing portrayal of life in the margins in Mexico, raw, relevant, and impossible to ignore. So, importantly, the International Booker Jury has shown they appreciate edgy short story collections. Yeah, that's something that I think is a positive. This book could continue the trend of valuing short stories, bringing some needed Latin American fire to the finals. It also rounds out our predicted shortlist with a jolt of adrenaline, stylistically different. Short stories, geographically distinct and thematically daring. So I have a feeling the judges might just take the bait on Reservoir Bitches and say, bold conversation starting book that belongs in this lineup. And finally, we have on the calculation of volume, book one. And okay, deep breath, because this one's not a beach read, it's a mind trip of the highest order. This Danish novel, the first of a heptology, yes, 7 books, of which 5 are already available in Danish, follows a woman who finds herself stuck in a time loop, reliving the same day over and over. But instead of going full Groundhog Day, it turns into a profound meditation on grief, measurement, and the limits of knowledge. So it sounds lofty, it's fairly short, but it is emotionally intimate and explores how time fractures around loss. So, despite the idea of Groundhog Day being sort of familiar and explored in various different ways, this feels original because it's the first time we're experiencing this repeated day with this particular woman. And also, it gave me echoes of the details, but only in that it has the small details having to be pieced together time and time again. Otherwise, it is very different. I loved as well the translation must be crystal clear because it just comes across so well. It's strange and shimmering texture of this time that is repeating, but not in ways that we would expect. That's all I'll say about that. I don't want to spoil anything. The themes, the time, absence, and the self feel deeply relevant in a post pandemic world where a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us feel a little untethered. So I think including calculation would give the shortlist a philosophical, structurally ambitious entry and counterbalance some of the more visceral picks in the long list. So, yes, I'm calling it on the calculation of volume. Book one is making the shortlist. Call it book math. That's a very bad pun. But yes, I feel like it will be. I hope it is. Anyway, so there you have it. Those are my 6. Mind-bending Romanian epic, too punchy Japanese novella, poignant Palestinian allegory, darkly comic African island tale, plus a badass Mexican story collection, and a deeply philosophical Danish novel. Whew, this list has range. Am I confident? Cautiously, and fully prepared to laugh at myself if I get none of these right when the shortlist drops tomorrow. So imagine if they do pick perfection after I gently skewered it in my weekly updates. I did say it was a taut sociological commentary as a positive, so I wasn't totally negative. But anyway, truly, I'd be thrilled for both the author and Sophie Hughes if it was shortlisted. By the way, Sophie Hughes has been shortlisted 5 times for the International Booker for, well, no, short and long list. So, she's a consistently brilliant translator, and all of these translators are brilliant. Whoever the judges choose, these 13 books offer innovation, diversity, and brilliant storytelling. I probably said brilliant a lot of times. So, what do you think? Did any of these make your dream shortlist? Did I leave out your favorite? I'm already feeling guilty if I did. So, let me know in the comments. I'll be back after the announcement, or maybe I'll do a live reaction. We'll see. I will either be having celebratory cake or humble pie. Anyway, keep reading and see you later.